Alright, here we have a quote from Mrs. Burling, giving her usual arrogance and ignorance as she does throughout the play, and she's really making clear here that she feels that the entire investigation is beneath her and her family, and her family status means, of course, they are above questioning and above the idea that they could possibly be criminals. So let's zoom in on some of the language, because she obviously always gives us some corkers, does Mrs. Burling. So, of course, this arrogant tone right from the start presumes that her family are so important that Inspector Gould should know about them before he even arrives. And he's really been quite disrespectful for not having done his homework if he didn't. To rock up to a house of a family with the status of the Burlings without knowing who they are, it almost implies a disrespectfulness on his behalf, because, of course, her family are so important. Yet, of course, we know they're not. They're not even upper class. They're simply middle class. But this doesn't stop Mrs. Burling carrying on, does it? To ram it home, she says, of course, that my husband was Lord Mayor only 2 years ago and that he's still a magistrate. Well, we do know that because Mr. Burling likes to tell us that every 5 minutes as well. But let's zoom in on this a little bit. So we've got was Lord Mayor. Now, Lord Mayor is someone who is perhaps the figurehead of a community or a town, usually elected by the other aldermen. We've heard of Alderman Megati. These are important people, and they will elect a Lord Mayor who, again, wears some chains, carries maybe a big gold staff and walks around being important. A significant role within the community. And what Mrs. Burling really here is showing that both her husband is an important person, but he also has important friends. This is nepotism. We've talked about this before with different quotes in Inspectacles. It's using the power and influence to help your friends, or the power and influence of your friends to help yourself. It's essentially saying that my husband's very powerful. He has very powerful friends, and we could do you a lot of damage with that power if we wanted to. It's an implied threat, I think, as well as saying that, of course, our status means that we're above questioning. She then goes on to say he's still a magistrate. Now, a magistrate is someone who is in charge of dealing with minor crimes and deciding punishments. Again, saying that almost Mr. Burling is the law. He can't possibly be involved at the other sticky end of the law. So what we have here is Mrs. Burling showing that her class and status means that her family is above the law. Some link quotes there. There's lots of link quotes to this. Both Mr. Burling, Gerald and Mrs. Burling do this repeatedly throughout the play. And then in the context box, I've just got some important information there on how class and status were truly, truly important in the early 20th century. By the time Priestley wrote the play, but providing the World War II had finished, this became less significant, and then it gradually declined until today, where we probably still have a class system, but it's far less important than it was at this point.